side. One little mistake, boom, it all been over.
We first told you about lawmakers and law enforcement leaders' response when packages began exploding across the capital city. Now, the answers we've all wanted for months as we sit down exclusively with the Austin serial bomber's roommate. Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz make their case to Texas voters in their first live debate.
This is why people don't like Washington, D.C. You just said something that I did not say.
What did you not say?
Attributed it to me.
What did you not say?
I'm not gonna...
We'll look back at some of the key moments from the big debate in Big D. Hello, and thank you for joining us for State of Texas. I'm Josh Hinkle. The main event of the week in Texas politics happened Friday night in Dallas. Ted Cruz and Beto O'Rourke faced off in their first debate in the race for Senate. Here's a look at some key moments from the debate.
And so I have worked hand in hand with the president on substance, and we have delivered remarkable victories, the biggest tax cut of a generation. We've seen 4 million new jobs created since Trump was elected, and we cut taxes and cut regulations. We're seeing record low unemployment. Texans' lives are better. So yes, I could have chosen to make it about myself, to be selfish and say, you know what, my feelings are hurt, so I'm going to take my marbles and go home. But I think that would have been not doing the job I was elected to. And every single day in the Senate it has been my job to fight for jobs, 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 and to fight for 28 million Texans. I've done that. And if the people of Texas re-elect me, I will continue to fight each and every day for jobs and economic opportunity for Texas.
That's your time. Representative O'Rourke.
Farmers and ranchers that I meet all across this state as I visit each one of the 254 counties of Texas wonder where their junior senator is as this president enters trade wars and imposes tariffs that are going to hurt no state more than Texas. Average citizens from both parties and independents alike wonder where our junior senator is when you have a president who may or may not have tried to collude with Russia in 2016, but to quote the conservative columnist George Will on that stage in Helsinki as he defended Vladimir Putin instead of the United States of America, that was collusion in action. Listen, if the president attacks you personally, your wife, your father, how you respond is your business. But when the president attacks our institutions, this country, allows a foreign power to invade our democracy, that is our business. We need a U.S. senator who will stand up to this president where we must, work with him where we can, but ensure that 242 years into this audacious experiment, that we are still a nation of laws and not one of men. Thoughts and prayers, Senator Cruz, are just not going to cut it anymore. The people of Texas, the children of Texas deserve action.
Well, hold on a second, and let me be very clear. More armed police officers in our schools is not thoughts and prayers. I'm sorry that you don't like thoughts and prayers. I will pray for anyone in harm's way. Rhetoric does damage. That rhetoric divides us on race. It inflames hatred. We should be bringing people together instead of suggesting the police are risking their lives to protect all of us, to protect African Americans, to protect Hispanics, and turning people against the police, I think is profoundly irresponsible.
This is why people don't like Washington, D.C. You just said something that I did not say.
What did you not say?
Attributed it to me.
What did you not say?
I'm not going to repeat the slander and the mischaracterization. I'm not going to repeat the slander and mischaracterization. No, this is your trick in the trade. to confuse and to incite based on fear and not to speak the truth. This is a very serious issue and it warrants the truth and the facts.
All right.
Let me tell you the position of the dissenters. The dissenters in Heller said that no individual, no American whatsoever has any right to keep and bear arms whatsoever. That's a radical position. It's an extreme position. And that's what Congressman O'Rourke wants to see the Supreme Court doing, writing the Second Amendment out of the Bill of Rights.
That's not true.
And we are moving on here.
Hold on.
Of course I support the Second Amendment.
In what way, in what respect, and name one judge you've ever supported who would actually
you may not understand how the House and the Senate work, but it's your job in the Senate to decide if you're going to support or not support a given nominee.
Did you endorse Hillary Clinton?
Not in the House.
Did you endorse Hillary Clinton?
That has nothing to do with
Well, it does, because Hillary promised every justice she would appoint would vote to overturn Hillary.
I fully support the Second Amendment. I know how hard he works. I know how much time he has spent away from his kids. I know what a sacrifice that is to his family. I know that he's doing it for one reason. He wants to serve this country, and he's trying to do his best. We may have differences of opinions on what our destination might be and how we're going to get there. But I have no question that Senator Cruz wants to do the best for America, and he does so at great sacrifice to his family and to his kids. And so I thank you, Senator Cruz, for your public service.
Thank you. And you know, I actually agree with those sentiments. I would express the very same sentiments back at Congressman O'Rourke. You're right, being a dad of young kids is hard. I know the sacrifice you're putting in. My girls, every day when I leave for the campaign trail, it's hard. There are a lot of tears in the Cruz household. I'm sure there are in the O'Rourke household, too. That is the single hardest part of doing this. And let me say beyond that, look, I think Congressman O'Rourke is passionate. He is energetic. He believes in what he's fighting for. In fact, I have very much the same sentiments. You know, last year I did 3 debates with Bernie Sanders, and I expressed this at all 3 debates, that Bernie Sanders believes in what he's fighting for. He believes in socialism. Now, I think what he's fighting for doesn't work, but I think you are absolutely sincere, like Bernie, that you believe in expanding government and higher taxes. And I commend you for fighting for what you believe in. As you noted, we disagree on the outcome, but you're fighting for the principles you believe in, and I respect that.
True to form.
Politics reporter Phil Prazin was in Dallas to cover the debate. He takes a closer look to give us some perspective on how both Cruz and O'Rourke fared in their first meeting.
Josh, we're here after the debate in Dallas with Bob Garrett, the Austin bureau chief from the Dallas Morning News. Thanks for doing this.
You're welcome.
So going into the debate, what are the stakes of this first debate, and what did they need to do to come out with a win?
Well, Cruz needed to blunt O'Rourke's momentum, and we knew he was going to be on the attack, and he was. O'Rourke had a more difficult, challenging job, I think, because his whole brand has been sort of this uplifting, optimistic town hall persona. But he knew that he couldn't just let Ted Cruz punch him for 60 minutes, so he was having to be feisty and counterpunch.
Was there any standout moments, in your opinion, that people at home would remember these candidates by?
I think that really depends on whether you were a Cruz supporter or an O'Rourke supporter. If you're an O'Rourke supporter, I think, true to form, that pithy response at the end that he gave Cruz will stand out. Cruz, on the other hand, he is such a professional debater. There's so many ways he simplifies his immigration policy to 4 words. He's done Oppo research on O'Rourke, talking about rain tax, poll tax, death tax. I mean, there is no one who can do that quite like Ted Cruz, and he did it tonight.
So what are we going to see going forward in this campaign? What are the campaigns going to take from this and hit us viewers with in the weeks ahead?
I think it's really going to get rougher, this campaign. I think Cruz is fighting for survival and worried because we're getting word of enormous amounts of money, $8 million coming into O'Rourke in August through Act Blue, small contributions. There's nothing like this that's happened in Texas in a long time. So Cruz is going to unleash everything, and O'Rourke is going to have to really fight back, and we'll see that now.
Bob Garrett, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
And Josh, we'll send it back to you.
It's become an essential event for key players in Texas politics. Now the Texas Tribune Fest is making big changes, how they're looking to reach more people than ever before. A surprising result in a Texas runoff, how a Republican win could shape the course of the next legislative session. Republican voters made Texas history on Tuesday with a decision that could shape the course of the next legislative session. Retired game warden Pete Flores defeated former Democratic Congressman Pete Gallego in the special election runoff for Texas Senate District 19. The district stretches from San Antonio to far west Texas, and it's traditionally held by Democrats. But Democrat Carlos Uresti had to resign after he was sentenced to prison on federal fraud charges. That set the stage for the special election. Flores said his win shows people in the district want a different kind of leadership.
This is a testament for folks to behold the power of the grassroots.
Flores becomes the first Hispanic Republican elected to the Texas Senate. But his win also made history for Texas Republicans. The GOP now has 21 of the 31 seats in the Texas Senate, the most ever. The party needs 19 seats to keep a supermajority, which lets Republicans bring legislation to the floor without Democratic support. 15 Senate seats are on the November ballot, but only 3 are considered competitive. Democrats would have to win all of those to break the supermajority. A new endorsement gives Governor Abbott something to brag about. The governor received support from the Dallas County Sheriff's Association. That's interesting because Abbott is running against Lupe Valdez, who served as the Dallas County Sheriff from 2005 to 2017. The law enforcement group chose not to back their former boss.
We chose the person that has the track record of outstanding leadership, the person that we felt was the most qualified for the job.
That endorsement comes just days before the only debate between Abbott and Valdez. We'll be hosting that debate Friday at the LBJ Library in Austin, and we'll broadcast it live for you starting at 7 p.m. that night.
I'm glad he's dead, let's be honest. People like that don't need to be living in this world. Can't let them win.
He slept in the next room as the man who terrorized a Texas city this year mapped out his master plan. Now we speak exclusively with the roommate of Austin's serial bomber and get some answers we've all wanted for months. This week marks 6 months since Austin police stopped a serial bomber in his tracks. A dramatic conclusion to one of the most terrifying 2.5 weeks in Austin history. People afraid to check the mail, pick up a package, and even walk down the street. In the end, police say Mark Condit planted 5 homemade bombs that killed 2 people and injured 5. We first told you how lawmakers and law enforcement reacted in the days surrounding his takedown. Now one of the closest people to Condit is telling his story for the first time. Investigator Aaron Cargile has more on what life was like living with the Austin bomber.
Look for the laser.
As police were closing in on Mark Condit's SUV.
All right, Van's made contact with him. The
23-year-old
got an explosion inside the vehicle.
Took his life with one of his own bombs. Hours before, the FBI was trying to figure out if he had been working alone and zeroed in on Condit's roommates.
They handcuffed me like that, and I was sitting down like this, and then they took my phone away.
Colin Thomas took me back to the spot where he was detained. It's a block away from the house he was renting with Condit and another young man also taken in for questioning. After a 2-hour interrogation, Thomas says authorities held him for another 10 at Austin Police Headquarters.
They kept asking me about my roommate multiple times, and I kept thinking it's got to be a mistake.
Thomas had been living with Condit for just 6 months and says they met through mutual friends.
It was completely normal. In fact, he's the type of person to want to take the shirt off his back and help you out.
Helpful, but also extremely private.
We all mind our own business. I had people ask me, well, how didn't you know? Well, how could I know? He was a normal dude. He did, well, perceptively normal. He knew how to hide it well.
He says Condit always kept his bedroom door locked, except once when Thomas was moving in.
He liked to tinker a lot of computers. He told me he built his own server. So I see all these wires going into his room. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool.
A man was killed in an explosion. A 17-year-old boy died.
We are having innocent people getting hurt across this community.
Authorities say a woman has life-threatening injuries after a third explosion.
Police believe they are dealing with a serial bomber.
If you see something that's out of place, do not handle it, do not move it, do not touch it. Call us.
Thomas says he learned about the bombings like everyone else and keeps thinking back to a conversation he says Condit initiated in their living room.
Yeah, I come home and I'm sitting on the couch, and he was talking with my other roommate. They were talking about the bombings that were going on, and it was scary. And my roommate asked me, are you not afraid? And this is what I think might have saved our lives. Mark, the bomber, looked at me, and I said, no, I'm not afraid, because you can't let the bad guys win, because that's what they want. He even started accusing me of these things, the bombings.
So Mark started accusing you of being the bomber?
This is when I came in, like, no, I'm not the person doing it. But I can tell he was looking for a reaction, and I just said, I'm not afraid.
Where was your room in connection with Mark's room?
My room was 3 feet away from his door. feet away.
And where was he making the bombs?
I think he was making his room. Honestly, I don't think they probably done it anywhere else. And that's what scared me, you know, after the fact, that I could have died. One little mistake, boom. It all been over.
Thomas has been struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder and is still full of anger since learning who his roommate really was.
The fact that he can sit and smile knowing that he killed people. The fact that he can pretend that, you know, be a friend when he's really doing what he was doing in his room the entire time. That's what I'm angry about. I mean, I'm glad he's dead, let's be honest. You know, people like that don't need to be living in our world. Can't let them win.
That was Aaron Cargile reporting. An update now on the victims. Anthony House, the first person to pick up a package bomb on his front porch, did not survive the explosion. Package bomb number 2 was for Draylon Mason on his front porch. The explosion killed him, and his mother was injured in the blast. A family member tells us they are still suffering. The next victim, Esperanza Hope Herrera, a family member tells us she is still undergoing surgeries. And then this young man, William Groth III, and his friend Colton Mathis, they triggered the tripwire bomb. William tells us he and Colton are doing really, really well. Something else that's still not clear, the bomber's motive. Why did he do it? The FBI still has a limited number of interviews to conduct. They also need to evaluate more DNA evidence along with phone and computer records. And there's also been the wait for a grand jury to clear the officers involved in the final takedown of the bomber. That finally happened earlier this month. It's an event that gives Texans the chance to engage with some of the most influential people in the state. Now there's a new twist to the Texas Tribune Fest that's making it easier for you to take part. This week brings the return of the Texas Tribune Festival in Austin. The annual event has become an essential stop for key players in Texas politics and also for the people on the national political stage. We are an official partner of the festival, which kicks off Thursday in downtown Austin. Texas Tribune co-founder and CEO Evan Smith joins us now. You've made some big changes, and some of them involve bringing the public in a little bit more.
Well, that's absolutely true. One of the biggest changes that I think in the 8 years of the festival we'll see this year is the move off of the University of Texas campus to the streets and the venues of downtown Austin. We will be literally in the shadow of the Capitol. Feels appropriate since we're talking about so much of what happens inside that building. And the festival will have on Saturday, the 29th of September, a free component to it. We've never done this before. We are going to close down Congress Avenue between 11th and 8th Streets. We're going to have tents. We're going to have free programming. We call it Open Congress. This is our attempt at adding a free street festival alongside the paid portion of it. And we'll have several dozen programs over the course of that day, big political names, serious and important conversations, and we're just really excited to be able to welcome more people into a conversation that everybody in Texas ought to be having.
Yeah, is that the big reason behind bringing in this free event?
Josh, I know you know this. We live in a country where more and more people are activated, animated about politics, and more people want a place to go and be part of a conversation about the priorities that affect them, elections that affect them, big issues. They've got elections coming up in November, a legislative session in Texas coming up next year. The 2020 presidential race has practically started already. So all of those strains coming together under literally 3 tents on Congress Avenue, people will be able to have a place to go to listen to one another, to people they agree with and people they don't, which is my favorite part, when people who don't agree listen to one another.
Right.
And to be active participants in a conversation about these big things.
You always have some big names every year.
We do.
Who are we looking at this year?
Well, I would say on the national front, we've got a lot of national politicians who are looking in the mirror every day and seeing a potential president of the United States staring back. We have a double-digit number of people who are thinking about making a race for president in 2020. Now, of course, the news moves very quickly. We both know that. You don't know what's going to happen next week, let alone you know, in 2020. I mean, at this point, you can't predict anything. But on the assumption that things are normal-ish, there's going to be a presidential race in 2020. I think we can probably assume that. And there'll be candidates competing over the next 2 years for that. And we have a number of those. Everybody from former Attorney General Eric Holder to Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper to Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, even retiring Arizona Senator Jeff Flake, who was one of the most consistent Republican critics of a president in his own party. But you know what? We also have a lot of state politics to sort through, with the session just over the rise in January. And so we have a lot of state leaders, Republican and Democrat, talking about the big things that we care about here in Texas.
And Beto O'Rourke is your closing keynote, but it happens, you know, right before the lead up to the Willie Nelson concert on in Auditorium Shores.
Right.
It's going to get a little crazy.
Well, our event will be smoke-free, unlike I expect Willie's event. Look, we had hoped actually to have a debate, a general election debate between Senator Cruz and Congressman O'Rourke as the close of our festival. We invited both campaigns to participate. We could not make that work out. Senator Cruz and the congressman will be debating the next night. I will get an opportunity to sit down with the congressman and talk through this campaign, which, let's be honest, has not only captured the attention of people in Texas, but all over the country. Doesn't mean he's going to win. It does mean that people are paying attention. Now, as the Republicans are happy to point out, the people in New York and San Francisco who are enchanted with Beto O'Rourke, like he's a Beatle, like he's the fifth Beatle, those people don't vote in Texas. So all that national attention, let's see what it adds up to.
Can't wait to see what happens.
Me too. Me too.
All right. It's not too late to register for the festival. It starts Thursday in downtown Austin. You can find details online at texastribune.org. Evan Smith, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Josh. All right.
Thank you again for joining us for State of Texas. I'm Josh Hinkle. We'll be back next week to bring you an in-depth look at Texas politics.